Good morning. Welcome to Unity Longmont Spiritual Center on August 1st, 2021. And we are blessed to have Jenny Hooks joining us for a talk and her meditation. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Jai Guru Dev, and good morning to everyone. Happy Sunday. So as I was preparing for this talk over the last couple of days, I was getting no insight. And I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and that got me really nowhere thinking. And then something occurred to me, and I don't think it came from my brain. I think it came from my heart that said, well, what is it that you don't want to talk about? That is not, it's not coming to the surface for a reason. And I thought about that. And then I remembered this thing that I heard once that said, God is always answering the prayers of people. And they think that God isn't answering their prayers because they're so focused on the outside world that they don't go into their heart to receive the answer. And I thought, oh, denial. That is so funny. And this morning I came across this Rumi prayer or poem, and it's called Wild Hilarious Miracle. So often I put up my hands to shield my eyes from you. Wild, hilarious miracle. Your light shines through my bones. So today I ask that God shine through my voice to all of you so that the words spoken are exactly what you need to hear in your heart. So I'm going to start with a reading again from the Bhagavad Gita. This is chapter 2, verse 30. The dweller in the body of everyone is eternal and indestructible. O Bharata, therefore you should not grieve for any creature. Here Krishna explains that the soul, the dweller in the bodies of all living entities, can never be killed. The Lord says that in the bodies of all human beings in this world, there resides only one supreme soul. It is only due to ignorance that one sees differences in the diverse bodies. In reality, there is no diversity. There is only one supreme soul, which we are all connected to and which we are part of. What is in me is in you. It is in Arjuna. It is in Krishna. Lord Krishna reminds Arjuna, I am in everyone as the supreme soul, Paramatra. Every Atma is part of Paramatra. Every Atma is part of this cosmic body which makes up the Paramatra, the only one reality. He uses the word indestructible, this ultimate reality, the soul can never be destroyed. It can never be destroyed by anything or anyone. Again and again, Krishna says, don't grieve, Arjuna. Prepare yourself to fight. So a couple of weeks ago, after I spoke with all of you last, I went to see Bobby and I asked her to review my business plan. And she gave me some very good advice. And some of that advice was to connect with other people that I've come to know over the years in the world of healthcare and business and so forth. So I left her house and I used the speaker on my phone and dialed my old boss, Tony Corona, who had started his own home care business. And it went to voicemail. And I said, hey, Jenny, it's Tony. I haven't talked to you in a while. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And And I don't know, I was happy just thinking about Tony and making that call. So the following morning, I don't know, it wasn't early, it was probably 8:30 or 9. My phone rings and Tony's name shows up on my phone. And I answer the phone, "Hey, Tony, how are you?" And his sister Vicky is on the other end, and she says, "Jenny, it's Vicky. Tony died at 2:30 this morning." And we talked for a little bit, and I had known Vicky from when I worked with Tony before. Um, Tony struggled with addiction his entire life. And during the time I knew him, I saw him do amazing and generous and loving things. And I saw him get lost in his addiction. So I was afraid to ask how he died. And Vicky said, he drank and he died of liver failure. A couple of years ago, after I had stopped working because of the car accident, someone had called me and said, Tony is in this rehab nursing facility. He's not doing well at all. And so I went out to see him, and I was married at the time, and Robert came with me, and we went in, and he was pretty confused, and I'm not sure that he recognized us. And we just stayed and talked for 15, 20 minutes. And we were walking down the hall leaving, and I said to Robert, I need to go back and see Tony for a minute by myself. So I went in, and when I went in this time, he recognized me for some reason. And I just sat and prayed. And I prayed for a multitude of angels to come and be with Tony. I didn't pray for him to recover. I just prayed. I get a call the next day. Tony is so much better. I don't know what happened. And I truthfully don't know what happened, but I believe that a multitude of angels came and, I don't know, purified his liver that much. So the liver is a very forgiving organ. And you only need a little bit of your liver to work to be able to be alert and oriented. Well, that was 4 or 5 years ago. And Tony and I have had this strange and funny friendship. I never held back from Tony what I felt or believed. And we were as different as night and day politically. And I remember one morning we were chatting and he said something about Dick Cheney. And he says, I like Dick Cheney. Now, in retrospect, I think, well, maybe Tony could see the God in everyone, what I'm blind to. But anyway, he said that. And I said, so this guy doesn't have a heart. He has to carry it around in a lunchbox. What do you like about him? Well, what he liked about him was that Tony was a rich guy and Dick Cheney supported all the ways that our tax dollars can be given by the middle class and not the very rich white guys. And I would tell him all the time, like, you're a white privileged guy. You have no idea what, the common experience is. And we argued about things all the time. But if I said to him, we have a new patient in hospice, he has breathing difficulties and they don't have air conditioning. Let's buy him an air conditioner. And he would do it. And so we just had the funniest relationship. And I remember when I started my new job in home care, we were talking on the phone and he asked me how I liked it and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I love the job, but the company is horrible. And I said, it's just a bunch of Fat cats in Atlanta getting rich off the backs of disabled children, their families, and nurses. And he just cracked up and he says, oh man, you never change, do you? And I said, well, it's true. I mean, this is a Mitt Romney owned company and they buy up other companies to be the biggest home care agency, but their mission, their heart is not in helping children. And it, makes me a little crazy. Then last November, he calls me and he says, guess who I'm voting for? And I said, oh, Tony, I can't take it. I don't think I want to ask the question. He goes, no, you got to ask me. You got to ask me. So I asked him and he says, Biden. He was so happy to call me and tell me that he was voting for Biden. And I said to him something like, Tony, I have done some good in this world that you are voting for Biden. And he just laughed. And that was the kind of relationship that we had. And one time he says, I don't have an ego. And I said, Tony, that's not true. And he goes, look at me. I don't have an ego. And I said, the fact that you wear shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops to work means you're not pompous, maybe, but it doesn't mean you don't have an ego. And I said, you have money ego like crazy, because no matter how much money you have and you've paid off your, $1 million home, it's not enough for you. You have to make $1 more and you have to brag about it to your buddies on the golf course. And he laughed. He goes, well, that's true. So, we just had this bantering and it was, I loved it. I always felt happy, like when we sparred a little bit. And, I look back and I think, well, why is that? And this wasn't our first lifetime together, of course. We had known each other in previous lifetimes. And we brought that love for each other. And I have thought many times when I meet somebody who is, in my small view of the world, less lovable, less likable. So if I can love Tony Corona and we can have terribly different political views on the world, why do I meet somebody else and I think asshole or something else that's not very nice? Why can't I see the divine within? And the truth is that I think that whatever happened between Tony and I in this lifetime and any previous lifetimes is that we've forgiven each other, that we don't have anger and resentment. And, so with all that anger and resentment and healing between us, then we can just be friends, no matter how misguided his philosophies and beliefs are. So, and he thinks probably the same thing about me. So I went last night and I got out these papers of what happens when we die. And this is from a very, this is from a Hindu perspective. So it might not be your belief system, but it's interesting food for thought, whether or not this is your belief system. Slowly and steadily, the soul realizes that it is dead and there's no way back. The soul is floating approximately 12 feet or at the height of the ceiling, seeing everything that is happening around them. Generally, the soul floats around the body till it's cremated. So the next time, if you see a body carried to cremation, be informed that the soul is also a part of the procession, seeing, hearing, and witnessing everything. Once the cremation is complete, the soul is convinced that the main essence of its survival on earth is lost, and the body it occupied for so many years has merged into the five elements. The soul experiences complete freedom. The boundaries it had while being in a body are gone, and it can travel anywhere by mere thought. For 7 days, the soul moves about its places of interest like its favorite joint, morning walk, garden, office, etc. If the soul is possessive of its money, it will stay near its cupboards. Or if he is possessive of his children, it will be in their room, clinging to them. By the end of the 7th day, the soul says bye to his family and moves further up to the periphery of the earth plane to cross over to the other side. It is said that there's a big tunnel here which it has to cross before reaching the astral plane. Hence, it is said that the first 12 days after death are extremely critical. We, the living, have to carry out the rituals correctly and pray and ask forgiveness from the soul so that it does not carry negative emotions like hurt, hatred, anger, at least from the near and dear ones. So I read this last night, but yesterday morning I attended Tony's funeral service. And I was sitting there listening, and I suddenly just said, Tony, may all between us be forgiven. May there be only love between us. And I just was sitting there meditating on this during the service. And I came home and I read this and I thought, oh, we are in tune, that I would call you hours before your death, that I would say this prayer, and just sit in meditation during the service. And my Atma knew exactly what I needed to do. And over the course of the week since Tony's died, I've prayed for him every day, not because I remembered that I had this in my file, but just because I wanted to pray for him and to hope that his journey was peaceful. So on the 11th and 12th day, Hindus conduct homas and prayers and rituals through which the soul is united with the ancestors, close friends, and relatives and guides from their lifetime. So we are born depending on what we have asked for in the agreement. I'm on the wrong page. I'm sorry. So then what happens after death and what happens after how we are reborn again? So approximately 4 to 5, I'm out of order because I didn't number the pages and they're front and back. So I'm going to go back a little bit. I apologize. 4 to 5 hours before death, the soul chakra situated below the feet get detached, symbolizing disconnection from the earth plane. So as a hospice nurse, the other thing that happens at the same time, I can tell you, when someone is, now this doesn't refer to a sudden death because I don't have experience being with somebody at a sudden death, but in a hospice type death, the feet get very cold. And if you touch the feet and you think they're cold, you want to cover them up. But the person who is in the bed doesn't experience their feet as being cold. So I find that very interesting. And when they depart, it is said that Yama, the god of death, appears to guide the soul. And when we think of, like somebody coming at the end of your life and we picture somebody dressed in black with a scythe in hand. That Yama is not like that. He's it's not ever how he's portrayed with the scythe dressed in black. He's kind and loving, and it's just a very different from what I grew up with. Death severs the astral cord, which is the connection of the soul to the body. Once this cord is cut, the soul becomes free of the body and moves up and inside, up and out of the body. And as somebody who had a near-death experience, and I felt for weeks like my soul was a shadow behind me, that we weren't fully connected, I thought to myself reading this, oh, my astral cord must have been damaged. And it took me a while to have my soul be integrated and feel like it was inside of me instead of next to me. If the soul is attached to the physical body it occupied for this lifetime, it refuses to leave and tries to get into the body and stay in it. And I have seen this as a hospice nurse. We observe very subtle or slight movement of the face, hands, or legs after the person has died. And I just think to myself, oh, it's a muscle spasm. But now I think, that's really interesting. At this stage, the soul, and this is why we want to pray as much as we can for the dying. At this stage, the soul hears many voices all at the same time. These are the thoughts of all the individuals present in the room. The soul, on its part, talks to his loved ones as if he was still alive and they can't hear him. And the soul is saying, I'm not dead, I'm not dead. But nobody hears him. So when everyone around that body is thinking of God and praying, this allows that soul to also connect with God and to realize that they are deceased. So I wish I had known this all those years as a hospice nurse. I've always been respectful of the body and have always encouraged people not to say anything in the room with a dying person that they wouldn't say, because I would say, the senses are the last to go. So even though they appear to be unconscious, we really don't know what they're hearing. So we should, be respectful and so forth. And, but the other thing, I always attributed it to Western medicine, because we've discovered that, how do we pronounce someone's dead? They have no heartbeat and they're not breathing. But studies have been done that when they hook people up to EEG leads, even after the heart is stopped, there's brain activity. So we define death as the absence of a heartbeat, when in fact, they're probably not dead for a while longer. So then what's the rebirth about? And how does that happen, that we are reincarnated and come back into another body? We are born depending on what we have asked for in our agreement. Doing these pages back. Okay, so then all of the, I'm sorry to be so out of order and discombobulated. But anyway, so the ancestors. So all the ancestors passed away, they welcome the soul, and they have a few minutes together, or whatever time is in that dimension, I don't know. The soul then, along with its guides, are taken through life review. of the life that they have just completed on earth in the presence of the great karmic board. It is here in the pure light that the whole past life is reviewed. There's no judge. There's no God here. The soul judges itself the way he judged others in this lifetime. So if in life he asked for revenge for people he didn't like, then before the karmic review, he asked for revenge for himself in his next life. He asked for revenge for people who troubled him in life. He experiences guilt for all the wrongdoings he did to people and asks for self-punishment to learn the lesson. Since the soul is not bound to the body and the ego, the final judgment becomes the basis for the next lifetime. So here, this is why we need to forgive in this lifetime ourselves and everyone else, so that when we leave this body, we are not taking this tremendous karmic load of anger and resentment and sadness and all of those things with us, because then we get to bring them into the next life and start all over and do it all again. All the challenges that came into our lives. So the ones that we dealt with and became stronger because we confronted them and moved forward. But what happens to the ones we side skirted? We didn't want to talk about that. We didn't want to deal with it. All of those come back as well. In fact, the soul chooses all the minute details like age, person, and circumstances for all incidences to be experienced in the next life. Well, guess what? We can't blame God for anything. Like people, and I've been there, something bad happens and we're angry at God. And then to read, in fact, the soul chooses all the minute details. So now I have to forgive myself for picking the minute details that I don't like in this life. There's always something. So the way we judge ourselves and in guilt ask for punishment, the amount of guilt in the soul decides the severity of the punishment and the level of suffering. Again, forgiveness is so important. We must forgive and we must seek forgiveness. So we have to forgive ourselves, but it's like AA and the 12 steps. We have to make amends and apologize whenever possible and take responsibility for our actions. And the things that we're most likely to have made amends for in a lifetime are the things that we're most ashamed of. So it does take courage to go into the heart and to face the things that we don't want to face. So clear your thoughts and emotions as we carry them forward. If we clear our thoughts and emotions before we leave this world, then we carry so much less with us into the next world. We create a kinder blueprint, so to speak, for our next life. And so then what happens is we go to a loka. And a loka is like a mini heaven. And it's like a retreat or a vacation. And if you were very good and did many good deeds in this world, then you spend a lot more time in the resort before you're reborn. And so we are born depending on what we have asked for in the agreement. The cooling off period depends on our urgency to evolve. So sometimes we say, I don't want to be in this place. I want to go. I want my next lifetime, and I want to attain God so that I can end the cycle of birth and death. We choose our parents and we enter the mother's womb either at the time of egg formation or during the 4th to 5th month, or sometimes even at the very last moment, just before birth. The universe is really, it's so perfect, designed that the time and place of birth constitutes our horoscope, which actually is a blueprint of this life. Most of us think about, oh, our stars are bad or we are unlucky, but in actuality, they just mirror the agreement that you made when you planned and created the blueprint for this life. Once we are reborn, for around 40 days, a baby remembers the past life and laughs and cries. The memory of the past life is completely cut after this, and we experience life as though we never existed in a previous lifetime. Some of us might have a glimmer of a past life, but in general, we pretty much forget. Babies that are born and live only a short time or even up to the age of 2 often remember everything for those first 2 years until they die. That they have a very small karmic load and came for just a short time. So once the agreement starts, it's here that we are completely in the earth plane and our contract comes into full effect. We then blame God and other people for our difficult situations and curse God for giving us such a difficult life. We pray to God and then we don't go into the silence and listen to the answer and complain that God didn't answer our prayers. Friends, relatives, foes, parents, spouses have been selected by us in the blueprint. They're just playing their part and are merely actors in the film written, produced, and directed by us. I gotta say, I think I read this before and I put it away because I thought, that's a little too heavy for me to take all that in, and I'll think about it later. So I guess my blueprint said it was time for this script to come out of and to be reread. And again, do the dead need our healing and prayers? The dead always need serious healing and prayers to be free and not earthbound. There are many reasons for the soul to be earthbound, like unfinished business, excessive grief, trauma on death, sudden death, fear of moving on to the astral plane, and one of the most important, finishing last rites and rituals. So that is, in Judaism, caring for the dead body, burying the dead body, and praying for the dead body is said to be the highest form of giving because it's a gift that cannot be repaid. And I think that's so beautiful. And what a beautiful gift to give somebody, to help them clear away the negativity as they take that next step before they create their next blueprint. earthbound spirits. So there are some people that refuse to go and they're trapped. And so ghosts, so those spirits, so the first 12 days are the most important because the astral world will close after 12 days. And so then those who don't cross over are stuck in that space until they do this extra work to get across. But earthbound spirits lead a very miserable existence as they are neither in their actual plane nor in a body to lead an earthly life. They may not be negative or harmful, but they're stuck and lonely and miserable. So when someone dies, to pray for them for the first 12 days is the most important. And prayers by the whole family is very vital to help the dead cross over. The protection of the soul to help reach its destination in the astral world is achieved through our prayers. So don't take that lightly if someone close to you dies. According to Swami Vishwananda, there are more souls that are stuck on the earth plane due to lack of belief and family neglect. And so a very strange thing happened when we moved to Colorado 20 years ago. Robert's, we had a bunch of stuff with Bob's mom. And I'm going to say that Bob's mom she wasn't very likable. She also struggled with addiction. And she was having a card game with her friends. And she didn't know that I was within hearing. And this was shortly after Bob and I got married. She says to her friends, I make it a point to be nice to Jenny. And the reason I do that is she'll do my laundry and she'll do stuff for me. And so I'm going to be nice to her because there's a lot of things I want her to do for me. And it was so cold and calculated. So you can see why she wasn't always my best friend. But anyway, we had a bunch of her stuff after she died in our basement. And Bob and I and my kids hated our basement. They wouldn't go down there and play. They said it was haunted. And I never paid attention. And it was really just a storage room. So I was never down there long. But then we got this cat, and the cat would go down in the basement, and then it would screech and run upstairs. And I thought, oh God, we do have a ghost in our basement. So then someone came over once and walked halfway down the steps and said, oh my God, the energy down here is really dark and heavy. So she went down there and spent some time and came up and she said, there's a woman who is really angry that nobody prayed for her when she died, and she feels very entitled. And I thought, oh, entitlement, I know who this is. So Bob had already moved out, and I called him and I said, and you'll probably think I'm crazy because he thinks a lot of things I do are crazy. But anyway, I want you to get your mom's stuff out of the basement. And I said, and I'm going to make this suggestion to you. Her soul is still down there, and she's angry that you didn't pray for her and that you didn't do all the Jewish prayers and stuff after she died. And I'd recommend that you learn to say the Shema, because you can't say it in English. I mean, you can translate it to help people understand it, but it has to be said in Hebrew. I mean, whatever you need to do, but I think that will help her move on. So he came and he got all of her crap, and he prayed for her. He did what I suggested, and he felt better about it. And that basement sure felt better after that. And it's so funny because that was years before I knew anything about Hinduism and stuff, but getting this message that, but the cat was what convinced me. If the cat wouldn't go down there and would scream at an empty basement, then it only appeared to be empty. So this is brought up a lot for my sister. I certainly prayed for her after she died and through that whole journey. Um, and I wish I would have done it in a more thoughtful way, but my family didn't want to have a funeral for her because of COVID. And I insisted that I wouldn't leave Columbus until we had a memorial service. And I am so grateful that my Atma guided me to do that and that we all prayed together for her. Um, and so there's really nothing to regret or be forgiven for because it went as it was supposed to. But I will keep this not put away anymore because I guess I didn't like it the first time. And I will be more focused and centered on each step I take when someone close to me dies. And I truly, we all need to be the observer. We need to watch, observe the words we say, observe our thoughts. And I'm a very sarcastic person. And so in that sarcasm contains a lot of information about what I'm still angry about or who I haven't forgiven or, I'm sure tons of information that I probably don't really like to look at. But I am tired of the cycle of birth and death. And I don't know if I'll make it in this lifetime or not, but I am definitely going to make it my full intention to decrease my karmic load. I will also tell you, and my practice about Makriya isn't the only practice that will bring you there, but when you are on a spiritual path and you have a meditation practice, and as a part of your meditation practice, you reflect on your day, the things you did well, the things you didn't do so well, and you place all of your problems at the end of the day at the feet of the Lord and say, I give everything to you, all the credit for any good that happened, all of it. It begins to dissolve karma, but it can also change your blueprint so that you're not bound to that contract because you have surrendered it to God. So I've given you a lot to think about, and I feel like I talked a long time. I don't know if I did or not, but I think we might not have time for a meditation.